IVM. Welcome to Absolutely Right. I am your host Aditi Surana. Thank you so much for being here and thank you for all your messages and questions. In today's episode, IVM podcaster DJ has investigated the subject of graphology with a lawyer's grit. We spoke about why handwritings change over time, struggles of left-handed writers, and his apprehensions to believe graphology. We also discussed personal areas like how giving honest feedback makes things complicated for him, and how his idea of a balanced life won't make him happy as per my analysis of his handwriting. Dhananjaya Chak, popularly known as DJ, is the co-host of India's #1 cricket podcast, Edges and Sledges. He is a cricket fanatic, devoted Indian team supporter, and a finance lawyer who lives in London. DJ will be joining us on the other side of this short break. Stay tuned.
Hey everybody, welcome to another week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Paytm Money. Do definitely check out our social media accounts. We've been doing some really cool stuff over there. There are a bunch of recommendations from hosts. I think you'll really enjoy the content that we're putting out there. And make sure you don't miss your favorite shows. Cyrus Says has been putting out some great stuff, as is the Pragati podcast, all about policy. Has been doing some really fun stuff. The guys at Football Shitball and Football Twaddle are continuing to release episodes as well, which are really interesting. Best of As Anupam's been having guest after guest, just killing it. Pulya Bazi's been doing so well. Postcards from Nowhere. All these shows are really doing well and really putting out great stuff. Appreciate the efforts that the hosts are putting in the lockdown, and I hope you guys are enjoying this stuff. And with that, let's continue with the show.
On today's episode, we have one more podcaster, DJ, with us. Hi, DJ.
Hi, Aditi. How are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you? How is it in London? How is lockdown working out for you?
I'm very well, thank you. It's been, I think, 45, 46 days in lockdown now. So it is getting a little bit long. But there is talk about lifting the lockdown soon. Okay. Hopefully that happens. Hopefully things get a little bit better. But no formal announcement as yet. But I'm safe and well. And that's more than anyone can say at the moment, really.
Sure. A day at a time. All of us are really going only with that one strategy, right? We have no clue where we are getting into.
Absolutely. A day at a time, a meal at a time, and one indoor gym session at a time, right?
Of course. So, on Absolutely Right, this is our format. I have your handwriting sample that I have already received. I've looked into it, and we're going to jump in and you're going to ask me questions. And then I'm going to talk about things and I'm going to ask you questions. So over to you.
Yeah, so interesting that you asked me for a handwriting sample because, and when I was doing the handwriting sample, I realized that I don't write very much anymore.
Okay.
A lot of my work, I'm a lawyer by profession, so a lot of my work is done on the computer. So you're either typing out an email or you're typing out a document or you're answering things. Everything's kind of online and via keyboard. Yep. So my first question to you, and I don't know whether you've had this before on this podcast, is how relevant is handwriting going to be in the future? Because are children going to be taught QWERTY rather than ABC?
Yeah, I agree. And I had this question at one point where I was contemplating whether I should continue with this career or not, around, I think, 10 years ago. And I'm like, what if people stop writing? What would I do after 20 years, 30 years? Then I suddenly realized there are two aspects to it. Have you ever done Zentangle or doodling ever before? Have you tried it?
So I don't know what formal doodling is, but while I'm on a call at work or something, and you'll find that my stuff will, my notebooks will be full of scribbles along with my notes on the side.
So even if you don't write, you kind of scribble, you kind of have handwritten images as your way of expressing or thinking. So there is this communication that is on all the time. Even if we stop signing, which may happen soon, at the end of the day, we are not counting on handwriting as a skill, but we are counting on the coordination between your hand and your mind, which is constantly going on. And when we count on that, there's so much to it. Now, at the end, we are trying to read the patterns your mind is shaped into. which is your brain, and the chemistry underneath that. And without knowing how you think, it is so difficult for us to go about our days, make our choices, and all of us make some or other assumptions about it, right? If being a lawyer, if you want to choose what your argument would be or what your stand would be on something, definitely you would take a back seat and look at things from your perspective. Now, your perspective is something that you've built over the years. I would use handwriting, and I do that now also, but even in the future, I would use doodling, scribbling, whatever information people give out through the stroke formation as a way to actually perceive how people think. So when you think of writing,
are you a fan of the Roach test, the butterfly pattern?
Yes.
So you think it actually works?
I don't know whether it works or not, but I think I've studied about it. So I wouldn't say whether it works or not, but I have seen the patterns and I've seen people really indulging in it. So, yeah.
Interesting. Because all I know about that is that you can identify a serial killer by what they say in those ink smudges.
Yeah, but it works like that because, because it is in a way simplified. When I look at graphology, there are 800 permutation and combinations that alphabets can give out. So I would look at that. So I must tell you this. I began my career. I can't say career. I began this hobby because once I was at a personality development course and my teacher asked me to make some zeros. And I looked at those zeros, which everybody made, and I picked up pages that my friends had drawn on, and I started talking about their personalities. And it became so natural. And all of us were surprised. I was a teenager, so I was like, oh my God, I'm getting attention. So I was very happy about it. But if you look at it, that was only one formation that gave out information. And now I have so many formations. So now I can't go back and simply look at the zeros and talk about it. You're just over information, probably overqualified to do that simple thing. But it is possible. So what you're saying, those ink smudges and those minute strokes do represent mine. But when I look at it now, I have so much more information available. So I would look at a handwriting sample.
Very interesting. So the next question I actually have for you, and it's again, when you ask me for a handwriting sample, because I'm not used to it, it took me a little while to work out what I'm going to write. Yeah. But over the years at school, now growing up in the 90s, marks for handwriting was actually a thing, right? So
where did you grow up?
So I grew up in India. I studied in Calcutta for 6 years. Okay. I went to school in Calcutta for the first 6 years. I then went to Hyderabad for 4 years. Okay. And then I went to Delhi for another 4 years. So that's kind of my schooling. And then back to law school in Hyderabad for 5 years. There was a lot of writing in law school. So that was, you did lots of exams. And I think speed was more the emphasis. But back in school, I think having a good handwriting was very important. And it was very stressed. I went to a Protestant school in Kolkata.
Then it mattered so much.
Absolutely. So you were told that you needed to make sure that your handwriting was good. But over the years, I found I had different handwritings, and I could change my handwriting depending on what I felt like writing that particular year. So, for example, I had a cursive hand. But then I thought maybe I think it was class 6 that I just decided to write disjointed letters for a whole year.
And they did not kill you for it?
No, they didn't, because I'd moved to another school by then. So this is class 6. I'd left the school in Calcutta in class 4. Okay. But having grown up writing in cursive, I changed my handwriting for that 1 year to writing letters by themselves. And then I switched back. So what does that tell you? Do people do that often, or is that a mark of a serial killer or something? Or
yes, it is. Should we report you?
And this is kind of minority report until I've actually done it.
It is actually. So people do not do that. Handwriting changes happen over a period of time. So I have met very few people who would decide and change the script. People unknowingly change their handwriting when they move from one school to another. It happens because so much changes for the child, like when you have that friend circle, certain environment, and when you move out of it, you go through personality changes, and that's why handwriting changes. But I haven't come across somebody mentioning that as a child, I consciously changed my writing as an experiment. It changes, but you did it other way around. Now, let me tell you what these two scripts mean. Now, when you have a cursive hand, what it means is fundamentally having many, many thoughts connected to each other, being more organized. Whereas disconnected handwriting means you being more disorganized, more creative, and also more intuitive.
Interesting.
For somebody who is that young, probably you might have not looked at it as intuition, but creativity and wanting to express yourself differently. Also,
no, I probably saw a friend's handwriting and thought that this looks nice. So I maybe wanted to copy it.
But that's what we think, but it cannot be your handwriting, and you cannot do it consistently without having some shift in your thinking process. So, you might have not realized it, as a child, probably it was traumatic, it was difficult. And while coping up with all the changes that were happening around, one fine day you look at this writing and you find that appealing. What makes things appealing for us is very interesting. Not everything is appealing for you and I. We literally have our choices that are happening underneath before we say this is appealing for me or not.
And as I've come out of law school, the other change that's happened is because as a lawyer, you read a lot of things and make a lot of margin notes.
Right.
My handwriting has got smaller and grubbier, and it goes into all sorts of odd angles because you've got to fit your margin notes into the side of the page, which is already typed, right?
Yeah.
So I find I've been holding a pen differently to make sure that you can fit your things. And so, I think I've actually, if you ask me, I don't have a set handwriting anymore because of all of these things. And maybe I'm just a weird example. I don't know. Maybe you've got the weirdest person on your show.
No, I don't think so. I try our other podcasters. You never know. So when I look at your handwriting, I don't find it small. I think it's a medium-sized handwriting, and also it's not completely disconnected or completely cursive, which means it has a combination of both. So what you went through as a child remained. Even if you would have gone back to your cursive writing, it has not stayed with you. Now it has come back, and now it is there, and the disconnection also shows. So let me look at it and talk about a few things, and then we will build from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't wait to hear this actually.
Now, DJ, the first thing that comes to my mind is your end result orientation. When you look at things, you have a specific result in mind, and it matters to you that you go for it, you achieve that, or you at least keep trying your best to get to that outcome, that you do not give up until and unless you have turned every single stone possible. If you think that there's something remaining and you haven't given your best shot, you cannot sleep without having given your best shot. Whatever happens eventually, you're slightly okay with that. I would not say completely because you obsess over it, but you're slightly okay with whatever results. But if you do not give your best shot, then it gets to you to another level altogether. That is not acceptable in your world.
That's not entirely untrue. I would say that's fairly accurate. Obsessing about stuff is
entirely untrue. That is such a lawyer language.
No, I think you're right in the sense that I would say that I'm a perfectionist in some things. Not in absolutely everything, because
I don't think
stuff I care about.
I don't think you're a perfectionist. No? You strive for excellence all the time. I agree with that. But perfectionism comes from not making mistakes. It comes from fearing and being under pressure. You don't have those things. You want to give your best shot. And that's why I worded it like that, because it's not about falling or failing. It's about doing your best. So,
at some stuff, although there's some stuff I'd quite like to take a shortcut and stuff that I don't care about. I'm fairly happy about. In fact, some would argue that I'm very obsessive about our podcast. And
that is something matters to you.
Yeah, so my co-host will tell you that I'm an absolute control freak when it comes to scheduling it, because we live in 3 different countries, right?
Wow.
Getting our time zones right is just, it drives me insane. For some reason, I've been given this task of ensuring that we get to
rightly so.
Podcast. Yeah, but it also ensures that I keep chasing them, making sure that we do it. And somehow we managed to put out an episode for 2 years and more. So,
wow.
But there'll be other things that I'll just be like, yeah, whatever. Don't care.
No, it's also priority. You're very
exactly.
clear with your priorities.
As you said, goal-oriented.
Yeah, there's no confusion about it. So you would not waste your time and energy on things that you don't care for. And that's something is slightly difficult for people to believe because they're like, but this is lucrative. You must go for it. You should do it. And you're like, yeah, whatever. You don't have that kind of affinity to all topics. But if you take interest in something, whether it is financially lucrative or not, you would jump in and you would do it because it matters to you.
Yeah,
So,
particularly podcasting, not financially lucrative at all.
I agree. So when we look at the other side of you, in terms of the kind of person you are when it comes to relationship, you're also that clear, equally clear. So when you deal with your friendships and any personal relationship, you state what you require and you ask for what is needed. Now, that is different for people to understand. They're like, but how is that happening? Aren't we supposed to like adjust and not speak about things? And you're like, yeah, probably it works for other people. But when I am here, I want to make sure that we create this space, even in friendships. You're very, very clear about what you require, what would you do and what not do. And I find that very interesting because many times people forget that they can set boundaries. People forget that they're supposed to set boundaries and you do not compromise on that.
I think that's true as well. I think my friends would tell you I either really like a person and I will do a lot for them, or I'll just be totally, I won't hate them, but I just won't bother. Yeah, I just won't bother as much. So that is interesting. You've got that from handwriting again.
So though you haven't written, handwriting does talk about your personality. So over to you. So let's talk about any topic that is, kind of at the top of your mind, or something that is bothering, something that you're pondering about, and you may want me to bring my perspective to it.
So my dad used to actually always say that in the old days, he used to write letters to each other. So when he was at university, like he'd write letters to his dad and his family and all of that stuff. And his father told him that handwriting reveals what kind of mood you're in. So if your handwriting is bad, it means you're not having a good time. Mm-hmm. Do you think that's true, or do you think what would you say from the sample that I sent you?
I don't believe in body shaming handwriting.
No?
No.
Just hand shaming.
Yes, not even that. But literally, I believe that good or bad handwriting, when people understand it, it's all about appearance. Literally like body shaming. It's all about appearance. But there is so much to a sample. There's so much to a person that can be revealed. And also at a base level, I believe people are not good or bad, or there are no good or bad traits. It's about what you have and how do you manage to go about your life. There are people who have extreme anger traits, but they're also very passionate about what they do. And they channelize the same energy, which otherwise a person can throw around and abuse other people. It's not necessarily the traits that make you good or bad. It's about how you manage to build the whole chemistry and where do you take it. So there's no good or bad handwriting, according to me.
No?
Good looking and ugly looking handwriting that people are referring to, but that's not good or bad handwriting.
What do you think about left-handers and their handwriting?
It's so interesting that you asked me this, because people who write with left hand actually has creative bend of mind, and I've seen so many artists with that trait. But there's one particular thing that they do which is very peculiar. They cross their T's, or any underline that's supposed to do, they do it other way around. Yeah, they actually take it from the right side of the page to the left side because they're writing with their left hand. So everything else they write from left to right. Only the horizontal lines, most of them tend to start at right side of the page and they go to the left side.
Because they finish the word, I suppose, at the end.
And then they come back and they just scratch it. Yeah. And that, according to graphological terms, it's a very negative and very self-critical trait. Negative because you tend to criticize yourself a lot. And I've spoken to numerous people with left-handed handwriting, and they agree to this part. They're like, yes, we do criticize ourselves a lot for some reason. There's no connection with being left-handed and criticism, but they do have that common factor. They criticize themselves for not fitting into the normal zone, behaving like other people, something or other. But this is a very, very common thing that I have heard.
They were the
Other
most
than
annoying
that,
people to sit next to it during exams because they would encroach on your space. While you're trying to write
that
with
is
your
true.
right hand,
Yeah, I never
their
thought about
elbow would
it.
arrive into your hand while you're
Did you
trying to
have a
write.
friend
So,
like that?
I think I may have sat next to someone from another year who was left-handed because
Okay.
we couldn't sit next to your same year. You sat next to people,
Oh,
a couple of, I think at law school, and that was fairly
that's
annoying.
how you remember. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, interesting. Do you think people still are forcing their kids to change over to being right-handers? Because that used to happen previously because left-handers were seen as weird.
And no, not for weird. For some reason, people believe now with newer school and newer thinking patterns, people are not doing that anymore because they've seen many, many successful artistic people being left-handed. So people don't do it. But I do feel in India, there is a tendency to first try and shift as much as you can. And if your child does not comply, then you just give up. So I do see that as a tendency. But I remember my friends were punished because they were left-handed people. So they were punished and it was horrible. It was like not fun.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's pretty intense. For being
Especially
left-handed.
girls, it wasn't a good thing for a girl in India back in the day that, you every good thing we use right hands. It wasn't a cool thing for a girl to have that as a preference.
Oh
So
wow,
yeah.
interesting. How did you get into graphology as a hobby? I mean, did you study it or did you just self-study it or?
Oh, no. There are international certifications on the topic, and I have
Oh
done
wow.
multiple. Along with that, I have studied psychometric assessment tools. I've combined them with graphology to come up with interpretation. So, handwriting can give you information, but the very moment you talk about a personality type, it opens up so much. So, I realized that I cannot only talk about handwriting and continue having a conversation after a point, because after a point you want to know, so what happens, how do you change, what do you do, what all you can alter. Now all of that became part of psychometric assessment, which I am otherwise qualified to do, but I combined with graphology because I find it fascinating. I feel this nothing reveals a person like handwriting, according to me, because any psychometric test that you go through, you're constantly maneuvering the results. You know that, oh, this reply would mean this, and if I respond like this, that's what the assessor would understand about me. So consciously or unconsciously, you're constantly feeding and maneuvering the information. Whereas in handwriting, you have no clue what you're writing and what it means. So it kind of works.
Interesting. You also asked me to sign because as a kid I was told you're not supposed to have a signature. So you'll see my signature. So my signature is just my name. You'll see. I have my passport has that. So I was told that I don't know. It was for some reason. If your signature doesn't later match, you change your signature or whatever. I was just told write your whole name.
Okay.
So that is my signature. I don't actually have a shorthand or maybe if I'm in a rush or something, I'll do something different. Sorry.
I said, isn't it interesting being a lawyer? Because I think as lawyers I've seen doing initials everywhere required.
So I think it's the people signing the documents that do the initialing.
No, also like when you approve things and when you send your drafts.
We just send it by email,
Okay,
so we don't need it anymore. I guess olden times maybe.
Older,
yeah. But I mean, other than maybe signing forms,
like bank documents.
Everything's online now. Again, you sign once, right, to open your bank account. And then
in a way, in India, we still do like 32 times Demat account opening forms. So.
Okay. So, but maybe that's why, because just writing my name as my signature would make sure that it would be the same throughout.
Actually, that is your, again, logic. But as I was saying, every choice that you make about your writing or anything else, you choose. Some people like certain colors. You like certain kind of books, or some people love to eat their dessert first and then they eat the main course. Whatever choices you make, actually everything talks about you. So when you say, oh, somebody told me and I followed it, but you had so many chances to change your signature into whatever you wanted. But
But
you
then
didn't.
being a lawyer also, you follow precedent, right? So you've already done it. So you keep doing it.
Yeah, again,
Same
that's
way.
what you think. But if you decide, if you could have, I feel if you wanted to, you could have changed it into anything. But
Correct?
that didn't happen. You chose
Correct.
to stick to this handwriting, this signature.
Mm.
Now, this actually talks about anybody who has signature and handwriting matching each other, and yours is not completely matching. There are some changes, but even if they are like matching signatures, handwriting sample and autograph or signatures are identical, that means as a person you say or behave the way you are even in public. So you take time. You would not open up. That's how you are as a friend. Even in a close circle, you will take time. You would not open up easily. You do question a lot before trusting anything or anybody, and that you do even in public. So you don't suddenly morph into someone else because you are surrounded by others, which you might have noticed other people doing. They kind of
Mm.
behave in a certain manner when they're surrounded by authorities or relatives or other family members. Suddenly become different people, and you have chosen not to do that. That also means that when people don't like you and you can see that, you're okay with it. You're like, okay, you're not my kind of a person, and that's fine. And that's not everybody's choice. People do fear being rejected, they fear not being validated, and they struggle with that fundamentally because of that fear of not being validated. It has made things difficult for you for sure, and you have chosen to just walk by. You're like, okay, fine, that's what my life is all about.
Interesting. It's food for thought, definitely. Very interesting.
Let's talk about cricket. So when did that begin for you, and how are you managing both your interests, which are really, not similar in many ways?
So, cricket, like most children in India, we started playing at home. We played in the streets. We played wherever we could find a place, right? So,
Right.
I played at school. Then I played at college. I played a little bit of representative cricket at state level. But
Nice.
then, of course, law school happened. So I went to it, law school, and basically played cricket at university. And I played in London as well. So I play for a club over here, and it's all friendly and nice. And but of course, cricket, podcasting, and so we started as a blog called One Tip One Hand in 2014 because
Okay.
I really enjoyed writing, and I wanted to write about something I enjoyed as well, so cricket. And of course, cricket gives you a lot of material to write about with the Indian
Sure.
cricket team.
Sure.
So we started our blog in 2014. My friend Varun joined, and then his brother Ashwin joined the blog as well. And then the blog was doing well, but writing, takes a lot of time. It takes research. It takes you've got to make an argument for people to be interested in what you're reading. Right? I mean, you
Right.
just can't say, okay, Kohli is good and Rohit is bad or whatever. Not that I'm saying Rohit is bad, but or Mumbai Indians will win. So what we felt was that it was eating up so much of our time writing the blog that it would maybe easier to do a weekly wrap of what happened in the world of cricket. And
Right.
so in 2018, about 4 years after we started, we decided to start a Facebook live show.
Okay.
Because we had a lot of following on Facebook on our page and stuff. And that then kind of pivoted into an audio-only podcast. So we started our podcast on Anchor. So we weren't hosted on IVM, and
Okay.
we started on our own. And then we moved to IVM in 2019, just after the IPL and before the World Cup started. So we've
Okay.
now been on IVM for about a year and a half. And yeah, I mean, it gives us a chance to keep in touch with the game. It gives
Right.
us a chance to keep in touch with each other, actually, because we live in all 3 different countries, and Varun and Ashwin are brothers, so they get to speak to each other as well, which is nice. But we get together once a week, chat about the latest games that have happened, chat whatever is coming into our minds at that point. And it's just a bit of fun, and it seems to have done well. We've somehow reach number one in India in cricket, which is just insane. I mean, the way we
Wow.
started this was just...
That's amazing.
Yeah, maybe small sample size, but we enjoy it more than anything else. We've got some awesome listeners who interact with us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. So it keeps us going and keeps us motivating to come out every week with a new episode.
So what are the similarities between both your passions?
What is the other one?
Oh, I thought law, but okay, fine. Okay.
So cricket has got lots of rules.
Okay.
I think cricket teaches you discipline.
Uh-huh.
It teaches you, I really enjoy test cricket. So it teaches you that things can change over time. So it teaches you that. Law is, I enjoy the law. I do enjoy working as a lawyer. I do some pretty interesting work during the day, but I think cricket allows me to switch off from that more than anything else. And weirdly enough, I think podcasting has helped me become a more confident speaker. Mm-hmm. And a lot of my day is spent on conference calls.
Okay.
Speaking to opposing counsel or speaking to our clients and trying to explain something or convincing them of something. And so I think podcasting has actually helped my career in that respect.
Oh, nice. Okay.
And I mean, work is pretty supportive because obviously you only do it once a week on the weekends. And my boss is a big cricket fan as well. So he's been trying to get me to get, he's Australian, so he's been trying to get me to get Harbhajan on the show. So hopefully one day that will come true.
So I must say, when I look at your writing, and if I have to find commonalities between your two professions, I must say that analyzing things, putting them in different perspective, finding what is missing in the entire piece, you do that as a habit. So there's a handwriting stroke that talks about it. The acute observations that you have about every single thing. So even if you're shopping and buying vegetables or whatever you're doing, you're constantly observing and constantly analyzing data that comes your way. I feel in both these areas, you get to do that. And that is really, really stimulating for you. So anytime you get exhausted or you get bored or you don't know what to do, and if that is happening in the lockdown, you must pick up areas, topics, discussions, books that can help you feel more intellectually stimulated, where you can analyze, you can find gaps more than anything else. I was about to say find faults, but that's wrong. Find gaps. That too, but find gaps. Let's stick to that. So literally find out things which are missing pieces. You really love to investigate. And I think you do that in both your interests.
And that's very interesting because you gave the example of shopping. And the reason I'm really bad at directions is I'm always lost and I'm thinking about something else while I'm doing something like shopping.
Okay.
So when you're doing kind of mundane daily tasks, I will literally just switch off and start thinking of something else. So interesting. I actually just thought about that. Okay. That is a very interesting observation. But how are you managing with your two professions and hobbies and stuff? How are those? Do you think one of them helps?
Other?
One is podcasting now, right? How is podcasting helping?
I think it is handwriting. It is completely handwriting for me. So I feel I'm so much in love with this one topic that every time I look at a handwriting sample, I blush. I'm not kidding you. It's just like it's damn funny. It's just like, that whole relationship of figuring things out is just on for 15 years. So every time I have tried going away from it, life has not been this much fun. So even when we thought of doing the podcast, I wanted to speak about concepts. And I said, okay, I am also a graphologist, but coaching, this, that. And Kavita, who is the co-founder of IVM, and also we have our production team. So everybody's like, no, we are not going away from handwriting. This is so interesting. So I used to do a radio show, which was based on handwriting. So we thought that would be so unique. Now I love it. For me, this is like, something that you're passionate about. But when it becomes your profession, you also kind of keep delivering at your passion. So I wanted to, so many times in my life, I thought I should find some escape. I should do something else. But nothing feels like doing handwriting analysis. I feel I really find my voice and I find myself. So I think for me, podcasting is one more way of analyzing people.
So you're using the spoken word to analyze the written word.
I like that.
That could be your tag.
I'm going to use this one. What is your podcast about? I'm going to use that one.
No, it's good. It's great because, I mean, as you said, you get a lot of insight without even meeting me. So, I mean, you would have seen my handwriting sample. And what were the three things that you thought immediately? So what were the three things that jumped into your head? Or maybe even there was one. I don't know.
No, actually, the first thing that came to my mind about your learnability. When you pick up something, you're highly learnable. And I think that's one of the most important skills I feel people do not have. People have certain ideas and they don't know how to reinvent themselves every now and then. Now, looking at you, it may come across that you've picked up few things and you're continuing in the same area and you've not necessarily reinvented yourself horizontally. You're not jumped from one thing to another and you're fairly consistent with whatever you have picked up. But if you look at it, if you master any of your skill sets, you move to the next level of it. You level up. And that is very interesting. So that stood out for me because I rarely find people with that ability to move faster. And I must tell you this, a part of my curiosity and research is about studying people with handwriting and otherwise who are high performers, people who have done really great in terms of going beyond their own limitations and doing something which is unbelievable. I love doing that. And I see learnability as one of the key areas I have found in their handwritings and their conversations and everything that they have done. So they've failed, they've fallen, but they haven't given up because they could reinvent and they could learn more. So you do have that as a prominent trait for sure. Yeah. The second thing I saw was the analytical thinking that we were speaking about also becomes slightly aggressive for relationships and emotions because people don't understand how to function around you. They do not understand. They can't take so much of straightforward, clearly articulated emotional experience. They don't get it. And that becomes a struggle. Even if you are very clear about it, that doesn't mean they are willing to hear things for what they are. And I think that's so important.
I'm just looking at my wife who's sitting here. I'm going to make sure that she listens to this.
Yes, I would like to take some notes and discuss it with her.
She's in absolute agreement at this point. Analyzing an argument does not help.
Yeah.
When people are angry. Anyway.
Yeah. The third point I felt was sometimes you do tend to be lazy. You just, you can't walk a little bit more and you can achieve slightly more than what you're doing right now. But there's a sense of lethargy, if I may say, or apathy also, because you're like, yeah, whatever goals and all these things, what's the point? Now, is it really true? I don't think so. I feel there was a point where your ideas were very, very clear. In last, I feel 2 to 3 years, you're questioning what exactly are you achieving by the choices you're making professionally? What exactly do you want to create? And I see a slight shift in your thinking. So there was this complete clarity and you wanted to go for it and you wanted to achieve things. And now you're like, is it really worth it? Do I really want to do it? So there is this introspective second thought that is lingering. It could be about the job. It could be about the kind of project you're into. But that's what is happening. So that was the third thing I thought about.
So professionally, you think that's what's happening?
Professionally. I don't think personally as much. Professionally.
Interesting, because I think it's a function of where you get to in your life as well. At a certain age, you try and figure out, is this what you want, or do you want something more or something less, right? So especially this lockdown, I mean, I think it's put a lot of things in perspective for a lot of people, right?
Oh, yeah. I know.
You're just sitting there because I was supposed to work the last weekend before the lockdown came down. So luckily I managed to finish all my work on Friday, but
nice.
Our clients had asked for work on Saturday, and I just stayed late on Friday and did it. But I'm just thinking, if this had been the last weekend before 6 weeks of lockdown, or how many ever weeks it's been now, would it have been worth sitting in the office and just I mean, the work was done, right? So the work got done. But if I'd gone home early on Friday or gone home at normal time on Friday and not stayed late, how much would I have regretted not being able to go out on the last Saturday before the lockdown?
Oh, yeah. That's so true. That's so true. But in your case, it is not happening because of the lockdown. It happened much before. So that putting things into perspective started 2 years ago. Now, probably lockdown is just reconfirming what you had thought about already. It's just helping you probably gather more data and speak to more people and, overall analyze the situation in a better light. But you had done that anyways. So I'm referring to that aspect, that you had any which ways done that.
And I agree. And I mean, with every job and every performer, what you have is three things, right? Three things I think motivate people. And maybe this is going into like a corporate podcast now, so we're doing
no, please.
And it's either money. People are motivated by money, or promotions and prospects, or people are motivated by a work-life balance. And now, if a job can offer two of those three, I think people are fairly happy. And so that's where I am at the moment. I'm fairly happy where I am. But it's the fact that I've thought about this means that, as you say, I have been thinking about this kind of thing for the last, I'd probably say a little bit longer, 4 or 5 years.
Okay. So I must also say that you have to, even in this process of analyzing and looking at things, you have to keep one thing in mind very, very clear, that no matter what you do, and you may consider this as a work-life balance choice, but keep your analytical and your intellectual stimulation requirement fulfilled or intact. It's very, very important. Because at this point in time, you do not understand exactly what you want. We just want to be in this balance, and it feels nicer to think like that. But without taking care of our internal requirements, when we try to create a balance, it becomes frustrating. Because no matter how balanced you are, if you don't get enough data to analyze and things to feel stimulated by, that's not a comfortable space for you. Just like a slightly different. So, otherwise people think being in a balance means not thinking in a critical manner. In your case, critical manner is building the balance. Which is contrary to most people's idea of how balance would look like. So keep that in mind anytime when you make different choices.
No, very interesting. Definitely an interesting perspective.
Well, lovely having you on the show. It was such a free-flowing conversation, and I didn't expect. When we began talking, I'm like, I think I really have to nudge and have to like get to this conversation, but it didn't happen like that. It became free-flowing. I'm happy.
No, it was great. It was really interesting that you got all of that out of a 10-line paragraph that I wrote. Primarily promoting our podcast. That's what I was thinking about it.
Actually, I do not read what you write, so I have no clue. So I don't want you to influence me to listen to your podcast and all, so I don't read.
Okay, that's cool. You don't have to. That's fine.
No, I would love to. I want to see how you boys talk about it, but I haven't heard the podcast, but I'm gonna now, after meeting you and after talking to you. I'm curious now.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've really enjoyed this, and I'm sure you'll have many more interesting guests with many more weird quirks. So good luck with all of that. And
I think weird is where you're setting the tone, and I am really happy about it.
I mean, what's world without quirks, right?
Totally agree. Say hi to your wife and do tell her that I will be calling her to check on my notes of the analysis after she listens to the podcast.
Absolutely. I will ask her to do that. Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much. Thanks so much.
I hear many people speak about work-life balance. The idea of having a quiet, relaxed, and easy life feels like the ideal goal. As I mentioned to DJ, unfortunately or fortunately, not everyone is happy without stimulation. We all get turned on in different ways. By turn on, I mean being intensely involved and completely absorbed in the experience. The question is, are you turned on in your life? Are you turned on by your life choices? Let's discuss this topic on a Friday episode. Listening to other people's experiences can open doors to your own clarity. I'm keen to know what were your takeaways from today's episode. What action will you be taking today to improve something in your life? Do write to me on my Instagram account, Aditi Surana. Let's connect on Friday. Till then, happy writing!
How many times have you motivated yourself to improve your sleep, or lose weight, or be more productive? How many times have you failed? Hi, my name is Ashton Doctor. Tune into my show, The Habit Coach Podcast, where we focus on creating small, tiny habits to improve your life instead of those big, impossible tasks. So make listening to me a habit every Monday, Wednesday and Friday on the IVM Podcast app or ivmpodcast.com or on your favorite podcasting app.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.